experienced people who deal with assessing identity documents.
Okay, can I ask you a quick question? There's an assumption with this research that the document is credible, correct? So if the issuing institution issues a document, then you're going to assume that it's credible.
No, actually my research is going to give you a tool for assessing whether or not the document issued by a particular institution is credible. That's what I'm working towards, is a way of assessing the credibility of that particular document.
So you're going to assume that it's neither true nor false?
I'm not going to assume either way.
Okay.
I'm going to be looking for those
You're talking
elements.
about credibility across a dimension, not a yes, no.
Credibility. Yes, a credibility, right. It's not a matter of is it credible or is it not, correct. It's a matter of how credible is it, what is the potential for identity fraud. Is there a low potential, a high potential? And remember I started out by saying that there's no way to give you an exact measure of that. I'm looking to give you an heuristic, a rule of thumb for assessing where on that scale the credibility lies.
Okay. You're looking at documents, the information on. And you're going to all talk about physical characteristics. You go to the bank and you put your thumbprint down. You create a document, but you can't change that. Or your retina, or
Right. Right. And we talked about biometrics.
Okay.
That's going to be one of the elements of different types of identity documents. For example, a passport, a U.S. passport, if I remember correctly, has both a signature and a picture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, those biometrics will be one of the elements of that identity document type, and that's part of what I would consider for sure.
So his interest is from the document that they create from those various biometrics
okay.
and the other processing that they do on it, what is the eventual credibility of that document?
Right. And again, that's not what is the credibility, yes or no, but what is the credibility on a scale.
And when you say document, is both soft and hard document?
I don't really distinguish.
So both soft and
it could be soft or hard, because it's just that the elements of credibility, the attributes that you look at to make a determination of how credible a document is. When I say look at, it will be looking at physically. If it's paper, it may be looking at it electronically. If it's a digital document.
But there's also fax, there's also smart cards, there's a wide variety of media. Is media one of your factors?
Media is one of the factors that I'm going to talk about. That's one of the variables that may make a particular document type more or less credible, the media that it's prepared on. Some experts, I don't know how it's going to turn out. Some of the people who deal with it may think that a document that's produced on an electronic media is more credible than one that's not. But I don't know how that's going to come out. So yeah, but media is certainly one of the factors. In fact, even before I get to it, between all of you, you're already beginning to identify the different things that I talk about, but it may help if you've read the document in advance. Okay. The specific claim that I'm going to make for this research is that it is that you can estimate the credibility of different identity document types, and that gives a good rule of thumb to estimate the potential that the type of identity document is not fraudulent. That may sound a little confusing, you say credibility and not fraudulent, but it just means that if a document is considered more credible, then it's less likely to be fraudulent, that's all. So more simply, the measurement of credibility is a good heuristic for potential identity fraud. That's the claim. The issue here is not tamper resistance or security of the type of document. But remember I said it's a question of does the document represent the holder? That's really the question. And I make that point because a document may not have been tampered with in any way, but it was issued based on incorrect information, and so the document doesn't represent the holder. for my research, that means that there's a potential for identity fraud because the document doesn't represent the holder. Even though there's been no security breach, there's been no tampering with the document. And my research is about types of documents, not about individual instances. Clearly, there are going to be other signs that you might be able to assess on specific instances of identity documents. But that's outside of the scope of the research that I'm defining. But let me say here. Remember I said that it's possible that we might have an ordered logistic regression because we do have some information about frequency. Even with an ordered logistic regression, the constraints continue to be relaxed for the independent variables. Those constraints just wouldn't apply with the data that I'm dealing with for an ordinary logistic regression to be used.
I have a question about how you were planning to collect this kind of data, the document types, and
I'm going to talk about that in just a minute here. I already talked about what the dependent variable is, the relationship between y and pi in the previous document. And I was saying that the y is an indicator. It just says, has a particular threshold been met? Has there been more than some number of cases for that particular identity document type? That could be one, or we could set that threshold at anything we want. I also mentioned the fact that it may be more appropriate to use an ordered logistic regression method because we do have information about frequency. Okay. And again, the only reason I haven't used that discussion for the purpose of the presentation here, the interpretation is a little different and quite a bit more complex, but it follows the same logic that I'm going to show you for logistic regression. I've assumed for my simulated results that there are certain components of credibility that we've identified as a result of the repertory grid analysis. We've identified that the media is important. I'm assuming dichotomy here is either electronic or it's not. But the chances are that there are many different types of media. Similarly, I have just I've assumed all of these independent variables are dichotomous just to make it a little bit faster to go through the presentation here. The fact is that logistic regression will work with any kind of independent variable, scalar, ratio, ordinal, categorical, and so on.
Is there anything on the independent variable side that has to do with the interaction of organizations? Is that relevant?
It is. It's possible that there may be interaction. Actually, there may be interaction among some of the variables, and that's part of the interpretation that I would have to do. I haven't made that assumption for this presentation here, but certainly for the interpretation of actual results, that's definitely one of the things that would have to be considered.
Or even something else about nestedness.
That's correct. Actually, there's, based on a discussion that we had, I actually found a very interesting book by James Jakar that talks about exactly that process and related to logistic regression. And one of the things that I plan to do for the actual interpretation is to get with him and try and talk some more about it, because I realize that that's a very important part of this. I'm sorry, John.
I know what you got financial industry in there.
Right. Is it financial, yes or no?
The
issuing institution.
Should there be one in there for government?
Yes, actually, this would be a categorical kind of variable because it could be financial, government. There are various
But the
number
choice
of
of these variables is the output from the previous repertory grid.
That's correct. It just depends on what the repertory grid
This
shows.
is just a suggested list so far.
Correct. Yeah. This is just for my simulation.